What is going on, everyone? Leon checking in, and we're at it again with another video or podcast, depending on what source you're watching this on. So I want to start things off by saying the format here is lightly scripted, but it's a change from my typical YouTube videos because I wanted to create something that would work a little bit better on a podcast. So if you've been watching the channel, you could see that I've been announcing that I have a podcast now. All of this is self-made. It's a one-man kind of show here, and it's a lot of work. But what I've been doing as a result is maybe not necessarily the best solution, but I've been taking the YouTube videos and I've been uploading them to the podcast. And what I find is that a YouTube format doesn't necessarily work all that great for podcasts. So this is a response to that. I'm not gonna do all my videos like this, but I wanna do these videos that are lightly scripted because they're more like random thoughts, and I feel like they would fit better for both a YouTube video and also for a podcast. So today's topics are Pixel 5, Corona, and virtual reality. And first we're going to start with the Pixel 5. So if you've been following the channel, you know I'm a big fan of Pixel devices. That's why it's called Pixels Cracked. I've had pretty much all the devices. It's like Pokemon, gotta catch them all for me. Except I have that one elusive Pokemon, and that would be the OG Pixel, the first Pixel. I never actually had that one, but I had the Pixel 2 XL. I had the Pixel 3 XL, Pixel 4 XL, and I'm trying not to say Pixel 5 XL because this is a change in the game. There is no Pixel 5 XL. But speaking of the Pixel 5, that's what I'm actually recording this video on. So the video that you're seeing now, it's Pixel 5 video. It's what you're seeing is exactly what it is coming from a Pixel 5 device. Now I may include edits like zooming in on me, cropping in, and then I may push you back out, things like that, just to make the YouTube video a little bit interesting if you're watching this on YouTube. So there are a few reasons why I use a smartphone camera. The first thing, I want to let people know that you can do a YouTube, you can do a podcast with a smartphone. You don't have to buy a ridiculously expensive camera that's dedicated to only filming. You can use a smartphone. The other reason I like to do this is for comparison. So in this video, I'm only using a Pixel 5, but in past videos, I've used the Pixel 3 XL and the Pixel 4 XL. For example, to film the Pixel 5 unboxing, because I couldn't use the Pixel 5 in the unboxing video because it wasn't actually unboxed yet. So when it comes down to video, the video does improve. It gets better over time. But I think what's noticeable most between the Pixel devices is the audio quality, how the mic takes in the audio, processes it. It does get better with the next Pixel device. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, I'm not using the actual internal mic from the Pixel 5. I'm using a HyperX Quadcast external mic. This is a really nice unit. It glows red. It just looks cool. And if you've been following the channel, you know that I love things that light up and glow. But what's interesting is that although on the other videos I did use the external mic with the Pixel 3 XL and the Pixel 4 XL, you can still sense, I can't even say see, you can sense the audio difference, even though they're both using the same external mic. And I'm not exactly sure why that is. Maybe it's software, maybe it's hardware. But if you watch some of my past videos, you'll notice that one clip, which was the Pixel 3 XL, didn't sound as great, and then the next clip is the Pixel 4 XL, sounds really, really nice. So that's why I like to shoot with the Pixel devices as well, just to kind of show those differences. So I'm hoping that this is somewhat helpful for anyone who's thinking of creating a YouTube channel or a podcast. You can kind of see what the results are, you can hear the results, and hopefully that makes that helps you make a good choice of if to use a smartphone or if to buy a Pixel 5 device for your YouTube or podcast. So the next thing I want to talk about is Corona, and specifically the pre-Coronas. Now, I've seen them, maybe you've seen them. These are people that are stuck in a pre-Corona existence. And when I say stuck, it's actually pretty sad because these people are stuck in the sense that they're so passionate about their pre-Corona existence, they're unable to accept the present and move into the future. So we have the pre-Coronas, which sounds very dystopian, futuristic. It's a generalization of people who are living in the lifestyle before the coronavirus. And then we have the new norm. Maybe we would call these people the new norms. They're the people that are accepting the present, they're moving into the future, they're adapting. And I think when it comes to the pre-coronas, their ideology is I gotta continue this. I'm going to continue this. We're gonna preserve this. The new norm is only temporary. We're gonna overcome Corona. And then we're gonna go back to the old norm. We're gonna go back to pre-Corona, and everything's gonna be okay, and it's gonna go back to the way it was. So personally, I get this. I would like to say it's pretty much certain we're gonna overcome Corona, right? But there are two problems with going back to the pre-Corona lifestyle that makes it sad that those people are stuck in that lifestyle. So first, we don't know when Corona is actually going to end, right? I mean, it could end a few months from now, or it could end a few years from now. There's just no way to tell. So that's the first thing that makes it sad. These pre-Coronas are stuck in a situation that is at the current moment undefined. There is no definite time frame. They're just kind of lingering. They're hanging there. That's what makes it sad. They're literally stuck. On top of that, again, ideally this should all end. But when it does end, do we really want to go back to pre-corona? For example, let's think of workplace solutions. So a lot of people, they don't have to go back to an office. So what that means is they don't have to put on makeup. They don't have to shave. They don't necessarily have to jump in the shower if they don't want to. Some people may not have to wear a business suit. They can wear sweatpants. On top of that, they don't have to get into a car. They don't have to drive to work. They don't have to endure traffic frustration. They don't have to fuel their car as much. The repair costs on their car go down. Their life has gotten a lot easier. They don't have to spend time at a cubicle. They don't have to be trapped in a confined area for 8 hours a day. They don't have to endure the bad weather on the commute home. They have more flexibility. They can do their work shift and still be in more of a relaxed state. Do we really want to leave that? I don't know the answer to that. That's just one example. But it seems to work really good for companies. Unfortunately, I myself, I have to go to an office still, so I don't know what that's like. I imagine some days it's not the greatest because there is that loss of human interaction, but there's also the increase in convenience. So that's the question. Things like that, do we really want to go back to pre-corona? And I think people are going to decide that. But unfortunately, that's what makes people who are stuck in pre-corona times sad too, is that's also undefined. We don't know if we want to go back. Maybe we like the way we're going, and maybe we're only going to make those changes even more dramatic slowly but surely. So I think it makes it even more complicated because, again, we have these pre-coronas and we have what I call the new norms. And as new norms, we see these pre-coronas and we just think, hey, pre-corona it's not relevant. It doesn't exist anymore. It's no longer on the map. That lifestyle, it might as well be imaginary. We just don't do that anymore. So you kind of want to be nice and empathize with them. Like, I know it's sad. I'm here for you. But at the same time, this is just an example of a challenge that's either gonna have you try to preserve what was, or try to adapt to what's going to be. And this isn't anything new. Corona isn't like this new challenge. It's not like this new thing that's just like slapped in front of us and like, now you're going to have to change. This happens. It happened throughout history, right? It happened in the recession. It happened in wars. It happened in other countries in past history. I think this is just a little bit overwhelming because it's like the biggest example of a force, the biggest force most recently, besides maybe the recession, that is really having people either try to preserve what was or forcing people to adapt. But it seems like also what happens in past history is that the people that try to preserve what was, they slowly die off, they slowly disappear, right? And it's not necessarily physically, but it's just the cultural aspects. So the people themselves, they remain, but the way they lived slowly dies off. And then it seems the ones who are to inherit the present and the future, they are the ones who adapt. But furthermore, on top of it, what really makes it sad about pre-coronas, people who are stuck in I'm going to keep doing what I was doing, it's going to go back, is the really sad part is because they're living that pre-corona lifestyle, they're not living the present. They're not living for the future. They're not moving. It's literally like they're stuck in the past. It's like looking at someone in an old picture. And that's what makes it sad is, so I mean, what do you do? Do you just tell them to adapt and move on? You can't really do that without sounding like a jerk or sounding offensive. So I don't really know the answer. So I guess what I would like to say is question yourself. Are you a pre-corona? Are you someone who's stuck in that pre-corona lifestyle? Are you still attached to your pre-corona existence? And what are you going to do to adapt? Because you got to stay relevant, right? That's the whole game here. You have to stay relevant. So someone who is attached to pre-corona, I wouldn't even say becoming irrelevant. They are already irrelevant because we don't live like that anymore. It sounds kind of cocky in a way to say we don't do that anymore. We don't live like that anymore. But I mean, that's the harsh reality. We don't live like that anymore. So the game is you have to adapt. If that's you, what are you going to do that's different? How are you going to change yourself to stay relevant? And this is only going to get worse, I believe, because the technology is also moving faster. We have to adapt ourselves to use the technology to stay relevant. This has been going on for years. It's not anything new, but the problem is it's accelerating faster and faster. You're becoming more aware and aware. So the last thing you want to do is not adapt, right? Because then you become irrelevant, and you become unfortunately so irrelevant that when you finally may want to improve, you become depressed because adapting starts to become this unreachable thing since you didn't work towards it early enough. So make sure that you're adapting, make sure that you're staying relevant, question yourself, ask yourself if this is you, and work on adapting, work on living in the present, but not necessarily even the present, because if you live in the present, what you'll find is that present just passed, right? So now is the new present that just passed. New present just passed. Live for the future, because even living for the present, you become old news, right? You have to live for the future, plan for the future, because the future is always here. It just hit. It's hitting again and again and again. So it's a hard catch-up game. So you can't even live in the present. So it's bad to live in a pre-lifestyle. It's really, really bad. It's bad to live in the present, and it's only acceptable to live for the future. Now, don't get me wrong. There are situations. I don't want everyone to say, "Oh, well, Leon, there are some situations where you want to live in the present." I get that. Family gatherings. That's a whole different thing. Vacations, travel, birthday parties, holidays, all that. You do want to live in the present. But even then, when you say you're living in the present, you're really living in the future, because again, the present isn't permanent. It's always the future that's coming in. So you're really always living for the future when you think about it. And then we have the VR update. So I have the Quest 2, which is the virtual reality headset from Facebook. And there is, of course, controversy around that. After thinking about this for some time, I really don't think it's all that bad. But moving on, it does have differences compared to the first gen. The first gen was all black. This unit is all white. And I think that goes more with a modern futuristic vibe, right? It's kind of like the PlayStation 5. It's all white. It's this clean, futuristic, modern appearance, this clean, simple hardware representative of a cleaner, more modern future. And I think that's where the Quest 2 comes in. But the reason I like the Quest 2 is the reason I buy anything on the channel here. So when you see all this stuff on the workspace here, I don't want people to get the idea like, oh, he's showing off all this stuff that he has. I want people to get the idea that this is representative of how technology is changing the way that we live. And I know you're going to question that, and you're going to ask things like, okay, well, what's the deal with the Cyberpunk controller? And even that has an effect on the future and how it's changing our lives. So Cyberpunk is this new game. It's kind of like a pop culture phenomenon in a sense, which is why I have it. It's so the question is, how is this changing the future expectation of how we live? You'll watch these videos, you'll see these people, they're augmented, they have exoskeletons, they have engravings in their face. I don't know what it does. They have these biological enhancements. And is that really that crazy to think about? Like, is it that far off? I mean, think about it. It really isn't. We already have augments, right? We have earbuds. They help us connect more with our smartphones. They're augments. We have smartwatches. We have smartphones that we place in our pocket. They keep track of our biometrics and our data and our location and where we're going and where we're coming from. So when it comes to VR, it's kind of same as all this. It's changing the way that we live. So that being said, I want to talk about why I support VR, and there are a few reasons. So mostly it centers around personal health. For example, how can we use VR to help someone with post-traumatic stress disorder or someone with physical therapy? Or how can we use VR for research and development? For example, someone sitting in a mocked up version of a car. It's just a digital representation, but when they put this headset on, it's like they're actually sitting in the car. They can look around, they can see the audio controls that aren't really there, but it's a digital representation of the prototype model. Or maybe someone who's doing an extensive surgery. So instead of doing it on a real person or a fake dummy doll, they're doing it in VR. So you got the benefit of not risking hurting someone, but you got the benefit of that it feels better than, it feels more real, it feels more genuine than working on a dummy doll. And maybe you would combine elements. Maybe you would still use the dummy doll, but you would have the VR reality interface essentially laid over it. So you're working on a dummy doll, and maybe you're doing the surgery and it feels real. Or maybe you don't even have the dummy doll. Maybe you have something that's similar to the PlayStation 5 controllers with the haptic feedback. So when you make the cut on the trigger, it feels like you're actually doing the surgery on an actual person with the haptic feedback. So I like to think about good stuff like that, but I also like to think about the negative effects. So these are more like the ethics of VR. And I like to compare this to the Matrix. And in a sense, it's kind of like we're basically there. We're not in virtual reality all the time, but we're getting there. So we have things like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. It's all this virtual existence of ourselves. And it's like a step before actual virtual reality. Although we're not in this virtual reality interface, we are virtually in an interface. So then the ethics become determining the real from the fake in VR. And honestly, we're probably already there, because on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all these different media outlets, we are already having this issue determining the difference between real and fake. But when it comes to VR, it becomes more of a problem. Because in VR, you can live the life you always wanted, ideally. You actually can kind of do that on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok. You can kind of do that. You can live this life. You can show people this life that you don't actually really live. You can show people this thing. It may not be real, like it's not real, but you can give off this representation that all of this is real. But when it comes to VR, if you can't tell the difference between what's real and fake, it's kind of like the Matrix. How do you know if to come out? So the ethical thing becomes staying in versus coming out. And then that leads to health complications. So if VR becomes so realistic that you can't tell the difference, how do you know that when you're in VR is fake? What if the fake becomes the real and then the real becomes the fake? So again, health complications. So most importantly, you start staying in because you don't know the difference. So maybe you're not eating, maybe you're not exercising. With VR, you don't necessarily have to exercise. You can just sit in place and you can just simply exist. But furthermore, besides nutrition and physical, it becomes possibly a mental game. So maybe, again, you can't tell the difference between what's real and what's fake. If VR gets so good, and it's nowhere near this yet, but if it gets so good that you can't tell the difference, maybe you stay in VR and your mind tricks you into thinking that that's real. And then when it comes to coming out of VR, your mind tricks you into thinking what's real is fake. And that could lead to all kinds of unfortunate situations, dangerous circumstances, things like that. So I don't want people to think like, oh, Leon, you're basically saying virtual reality and Instagram and Facebook and video games, they're all bad for you, because that's not the idea. That's not what I'm getting to. I simply like to question things. I don't know all the answers, so I'm hoping this helps you question things too, where things are headed, and I hope that it helps you make good decisions. But really, is it all that far off though, being stuck? Because again, just like pre-coronas, we might be stuck in an existence that we don't know that we're stuck in. Maybe we're stuck on Instagram, maybe we're stuck on YouTube, maybe Facebook, maybe TikTok. And that's what's real for us. And now when we step out of what is actually fake that we think is real, when we step into what's real, that's now fake, and it's just no longer alluring. So that is pretty much it for today's video and podcast. If you enjoyed it and found it useful, please leave a like. If you're watching this on YouTube and have any questions or comments, as always, drop those down below and I'll do my best to answer them. Now, there are 3 ways you can support the channel. The first way is to head on over to the Amazon storefront by clicking the link in the description below. There you'll find items that I have bought or would like to buy, and anything you do buy from the storefront does support the channel. The next way you can support the channel is just by sharing this video with someone who might enjoy it or find it useful. And the last way to support the channel is just by clicking the subscribe or follow button. Now, liking and subscribing are important because those are ways to vote on if you like the video or the podcast. Liking and subscribing are also important for new viewers and listeners. If new viewers and listeners see likes and subscribers, they're going to think that the content is helpful, worth watching, and listening to. So that is pretty much it. And until next time, Leon checking out.